Okay, so I will start. And the first question is to understand how a day in your factory looks like. I'm curious to know how many hours a day you work. So, how many hours you work in a day or in a week in the factory. So, for example, my parents work like 40 hours each week in Germany.
Right. So I'll tell you, we work longer hours here, not 40. We work 6 days a week, okay, not 5 days. And so most of the tailors, so we work about 10 hours a day, okay. The shifts are 8 hours a day again. And then, for the next 2 hours that they work extra, we give them overtime, so we pay them extra money because the shifts in India are also 8-hour shifts, means and if you exceed 8 hours, then you have to pay overtime to your workers basically. So but what happened was that this has evolved over a period of time. So maybe 20 years back there was no such awareness. So what happened was that we all used to work 12 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours a day, okay, without means there was really actually the labor laws were in place, but it was a draconian regime. So people would try to cut corners and try to extract the maximum out of labor. So there, I would say that there was a exploitation of labor, but now things are far better. In the last 5-6 years, maybe in the last 10 years, I would say, it has evolved substantially. So most of the tailors work 10 hours a day and 6 days a week, basically. And there is also, so supposing if we have a lot of production and we have work in hand, it is up to them. It is voluntary, because on Sundays, if they like to work on Sundays, they get paid more. Okay, they get paid more, plus they have meals and everything, which are organized by the employer. So everything, whenever they come to work, right from the time they come to work till the time they leave, generally they get paid 1.5 times than their normal salary for that particular day. But that is entirely voluntary. Okay, so if but most of the people, because here there is a I would say that it is maybe inbuilt in the DNA of the people to work as many days a week as possible. But fortunately, we have been able to, keep most of the Sundays. We try not to work on Sundays.
So I would like to know, do you produce fabric or clothing at your fabric?
No, so we have basically, see, we are a garment producer. So what we do is we are basically job workers. So we work for established brands and we produce goods for them. So the fabric sometimes, it is called a FOB order, where, we just display them the samples and then they give us orders for, say X quantities we have to produce for them. That is the time where we source the fabric by ourselves. We stitch the fabric, and after stitching the fabric, into garments, then we put it into washing or dyeing, further processes. And then there is a finishing process which takes place. And then we supply the order to the brand. And sometimes the fabric comes to us from the brand. So, there are certain big brands which supply us with the fabrics, trims, accessories, and everything. Otherwise, basically what we do is we generally work with our own fabrics. We source the fabric from a factory, from a denim producing mill. And so we work a lot with Pepe Jeans also. So if it is Pepe Jeans, what Pepe Jeans does is that they recommend us to buy the fabric from the mill. So that is called a nomination. So, we buy it from a nominated vendor.
Sorry, just to clarify a little bit, I'm not exactly aware of how much you know about how the manufacturing process takes place in the garment industry. To give you a little bit of background, there I'm sure as you're aware, there are various parts of the supply chain. It starts from the agriculture where the fibers are cultivated, like for example cotton, and then it goes into making of the fabric. Then after that, it goes into basically dyeing of the fabric, and then there are various processes, so on and so forth, till the entire garment is ready. So there are units that tackle each and every part of the supply chain, and then there are some units that work that are called vertically integrated units, which basically gather all of the supply chain steps under one roof, and that one company is uh, responsible for producing right from the fabric to the finished garment. So at our unit, what we basically do is we get the fabrics or even garments sometimes from basically these fabric or garment producers, and we carry out the dyeing and the washing of the garment, and then it moves on to basically be a finished garment. And recently we've also started the stitching part of it, so we also get raw fabrics and then we convert them into garments. So I just hope that clarifies it a little bit for you.
I would like to ask Sapan, you mentioned FOB. What is FOB? Could you please let us know?
So, see, FOB is basically a very, loose term thrown about in the industry. FOB basically meant free on board, but I don't know how that term got stuck. So in India, any order which is done, for a particular brand or something, for a particular sort or a style is called an FOB order. So FOB doesn't really have a value attached, means FOB, there is no logic to naming it FOB, but it's just something that, people have started throwing that term around and it's just stuck basically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
All right. Furthermore, we would like to understand the process of manufacturing and placing clothing orders in India with the garment producing factories. Could you explain how this works and how many people are involved in the process?
So what exactly would you like to understand about the manufacturing? Is how would the brand place an order and how we go about executing it? This is what you want to understand?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we do is most of the brands work on a seasonal basis. Okay, now it is changing because of because of adverse reactions to fast fashion and all that. And now people are getting more and more environmental friendly, conscious. The sustainability is a very big issue now. So what happens is that most of these people work on a season to season basis. So they have a spring, summer, and autumn, winter. Okay, and in spring, summer, what we do is we start to make a collection the previous year to showcase to the brand, where we basically we ask the brands if they have something in mind, if they have a particular color palette that they are interested in, if they have some styles that they would like to introduce. So this happens that our design team works in tandem with the designers of the brand, and the brand conveys its liking or choice basically of the garments that they would like to make. So we make samples, and once these samples, and these samples are made in sync with the design team of the brand also. Once the samples are approved, there are so many samples which are approved. There will be some samples which will be rejected basically because they say that we don't like this wash or something. But this whole process takes roughly around 2 months to get streamlined. And after that is done, we start talking about costing. Just 1 second, sorry. We start talking about costings and everything. Generally, the brand gives us a ballpark figure that, we would like to pay you $8, $10 for this particular style or particular piece of jeans or something that, and they give us volume indications. They say that we'll buy 10,000 pieces in this season for this particular style. So, there is always we work, there are commercial considerations also in place, because it at the same time, even if it looks good, if it is presentable, but it still has got to be affordable for the brand to fit it in its MRP. So MRP is a maximum retail price, basically. Understand? So after that is done, they place orders. And once they place orders, we start placing orders for the fabric. Once the of fabric, because fabric generally is never available off the shelf. So, you have to talk to a denim mill. You have to say that this is the kind of fabric that I will require. You have to give them quantities, say if there is, I have to ask for 10,000 meters. I have to tell them that is the time the denim mill will generally tell me that it will take us, 2 months to deliver this fabric or 3 months to deliver this fabric. After that is done, then we start the manufacturing process where, the fabric comes to us, we cut the fabric, then we start to, we wash the fabric, and we check the shrinkage of the fabric, which is very important because, all the fabrics that you buy, raw fabrics, tend to shrink after washing. So, the shrinkage has to be taken into account. And after the shrinkage is taken into account, we cut it according to the patterns, given to us by the brand, because each brand has its own particular fit. So, you probably, most of you would have realized that you like to wear some brands just because of their fit, some brands because of their washes, because they're funky, fashionable, or, conservative, whatever, depending on the individual taste of each person who is buying this. So, and once that is done, we deliver these goods to them. And this is basically, in a nutshell, this is the process.
Okay, so and how many people work in your factory? So how many people are involved in this process?
So I have about 140 people working for me right now. And, out of that, I have roughly 60 people in the stitching part and about 80 people in the washing part. So, we run one line of stitching, which is about 52 machines. Okay. And roughly with 52 machines, we are able to produce about 25,000 pieces every month.
You talked about washing, Sapan. Could you please tell us a little bit about this washing?
Yeah, so after the garment is stitched, what happens is that the garment goes, most of the garments that you guys see are always washed or dyed at a garment stage. Previously, when things were not so evolved, always used to, when I'm talking about 30 years back, people used to buy fabric from the mills and get it stitched and start wearing it. But now, after the garment is stitched, there is always some wash attached to it. Shirts, if it's, say, for example, if it is shirts, people like to have, there are some people who like very casual, nice looking shirts, casual looking, you want to go to a party and you want to wear that. Some people like formal shirts. So, you have anti-crease and all that, because it'll not get, anti-stain and all that, antibacterial, antiviral. There are so many things that go on to this. And these are all processes which are administered after the garment is stitched. For example, when a jeans is stitched, it is always a raw blue denim, indigo. And then, you start to wash the denim, you start to bleed down the indigo. And if you want some damages and all that, that takes place at subsequently. So this is where all the washing comes into play. You see those, all on all your denims, you generally see the indigo is faded out, and there are white patches, which is, basically done with the help of manual scrapping and all that. So, or you can even do it with laser. We have a laser also. We have 3 lasers, in fact. So, the laser burns the top of the garment, the laser on the surface, whatever indigo you have, the laser burns that indigo. So, you see the white thread below the indigo coming out. And this is what you see basically, because once the indigo gets oxidized, you see the whiteness coming out. So there are quite a few processes that are done, but these are done at the garment stage, after the garment is stitched. So this is what we call by the washing process.
Okay, thanks. Next question, please.
So which market is the clothing being sold to? Is it sold in your local markets in Europe, the USA, or maybe both?
So most of the production that we do is being sold in the local Indian market. Okay, but I'm talking about stitching and washing, but there are also some productions that we do that are being sold to brands like Replay, Diesel in Italy. You know, we work for exporters, so the exporters stitch the garment and give it to us. And this is what I'm primarily talking is about t-shirts and sweatshirts and everything. So for that, we work for brands like Replay in Italy. We are Replay. Then D Squared and Diesel in Italy. Then there's a Netherlands brand, No Excess. So, also I am not sure if S. Oliver is a German brand or not, but we used to do a lot of work for S. Oliver. So these are some of the brands that we work with. But primarily for the denim bottoms, it is mostly local Indian brands.
So in Germany, you have 24 days a year when you work to go on vacation and stuff. And now I would like to know if the workers have holidays or paid vacations.
So, I'll tell you something that we give about, so there are about 8 to 10 public holidays, which, are other than Sundays. So they, which even our factory, our manufacturing units are all closed on those particular days. And these days are intimated because India is a nation which works on festivals. And because, we are a very, you have so many, it's a melting pot. Okay. You have so many religions, so many cultures, which are all living under one roof. So, there are so many festivals. So most of the times, we have at least 10 days in a year, which are earmarked for holidays. Other than that, people generally take, because most of the people that I have working with me are migrant people, so they come from their villages, from other parts of India in search of livelihood. So they work with us. So with this kind of people, they generally take minimum 3 weeks off, to go back to their natives, to visit their parents, wives, children, families. Some of them, the people who are living with their families here in and around the place where they work, they still go to visit their native place. Native is where they're born and brought up, where they have a house. So, most of these guys, their parents are living there, or they have some land, some agricultural land, which has to be attended to. So we generally, but to answer your question, we have about 15 paid holidays for them, other than Sundays.
In the US, the minimum wage is around $9 to $15. So we were wondering what the minimum wage is of the workers paid in India.
So that's a good question. So here the minimum wage is about 8,000, about $100, $100 a month. Okay, means for 25 days of working. Okay, for 8 hours of working. But most of our workers are, minimum they start with about $200, because there is skills, because there's a lot of skill required also. And our minimum salaries start from $150. But the minimum, wages is about $100 for 25 days.
Will the wage potentially increase?
So, now what is happening is that at least in the tailoring section, in the stitching section, most of these people started to work on a per piece basis. Okay. So the more they produce, the more they take home. So here now, recently in the last 3 months, I have been paying my each average to each worker goes between $300-$350 a month. But, I don't think that in the near future, we are looking at any big salary hike or something like that. And we are one of the people who pay better in the industry, but the industry average is, I would say, about $120-$125.
Talking, just a minute, Yasmin. Talking about the price here, about the salaries, I think the brands that you work for, do they push the price down for you so that you cannot even hike up the prices for your employees?
Yeah, so what we have done is that post COVID, there was a lot of pricing pressure. Okay. And the brands wanted to buy at a very cheap price and all that. And to survive that, we had to cut, means we had to cut our margins, but we did not pressurize the workers because, it doesn't really make any sense for these workers to work below a certain level and certain salary. Okay. But now we see that the market has picked up. And so I think that we are able to get the price that we want.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Yasmin.
How do you ensure that these laborers will continue to work regularly? Are there any agreements or contracts that ensure your work commitments are met?
No. There are no, because see, with the labor, it is very difficult to get contracts. But I started my washing plant 10 years back. Okay. And my stitching unit about a year back. And with the stitching unit, we are still having a lot of people migrating to other companies, people coming from other companies to us. But in my washing unit, we have about the same set of people, same set of workers in the last 10 years. And most of them in the last 10 years have tripled their salaries, because they've been working so long with me that once they started, most of them are now at 3 times what they were being originally paid.
So while watching a film regarding fair trade and garment production effects, we noticed that many of the workers in garment factories were women. So what happens to the children when their mothers are working and are not able to care for them during their workday? Or is there no one else in their family or friend circle that could care for them?
So see, most of the units have, most of the bigger units have crash, inbuilt. Where they employ 1,000, 2,000 workers. Most of these people have social norms which they have to follow, because when the people have 2,000, 3,000 machines, they're generally working with brands like H&M, M&S, and all these brands have very strict compliances in place. So there will be a doctor on call. There will be a crash on location, so where workers with where ladies with small children can come and leave their children till the time they're working and carry them back when they go home. But with regard to our unit, what we do is that we generally we have ladies who work, so we have very few women who are working with us. It's mostly entirely men. And there are a few women who work with us, but our HR is very particular about this kind of thing, because we don't have a place for crash or something to put a crash in place. So, we generally don't offer employment to people who are basically, who have this kind of. So what we do is we know quite a few other people, so we recommend them to go to those places. But not all the people have this kind of, to answer your question, not all the people have this kind of an attitude or understanding. So sometimes it's just, people really don't ask, what is happening at your home front, or, how are your children being cared for.
Also, it's important to note that how workers are treated across different countries in Asia is very different. Like, for example, the way and the social conditions, basically. So I think I even read in your PDF, the documentary that you were referring to was The True Cost, which basically talks about the Rana Plaza disaster that happened in Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is, as you might be aware, their whole economy is hinged on the apparel production or the textile and apparel industry. And in terms of the socio-economic norms in Bangladesh, they're very different from what happens in India. So, for example, the rate of child labor that would be, and here I'm speaking solely about the textile industry, I'm not referring to any other industries. When you talk about the amount of child labor that is engaged, child marriages, all of that, it's definitely more. And there are certain countries where the system of slave labor or bondage takes place, where they're basically forced to work. It's not like they're volunteering to work, they're just forced to work those hours. So there are a lot of single mothers, there's a lot of other conditions that go into place over there. In India, it's mostly you live in a society, you live in a familial place where there are a lot of people to even care for your children. And as my dad said, that the amount of women working in our factory at least is very less, and the hours they work is also very different. So, for example, even if we might have a night shift or a later shift, women are generally not called during that shift. They're called during a time duration when it would be okay for them, or when they can make other arrangements to basically take care of the children.
So there are, to corroborate what Sachi said, that there are certain women also in a factory who work 6 hours a day, because they are only able to spare that time, that 6 hours, because they have some, husband or brother or somebody staying at home and taking care of their children. So we try to accommodate this kind of people also. So there are people who work only 6 hours a day also. But, what we try to do is we try to be flexible with this kind of people.
Okay, thank you for your clarification. In addition to that, what age can people start working at your factory?
Minimum 21. Minimum 21. And now, India has a national identification process in place. Like in the US, how you have a social security number, right? In India, we have a Aadhaar card number. So the Aadhaar is being issued by the government of India, and all of us have an Aadhaar card. And Aadhaar card is sacrosanct. So, without an Aadhaar card, we don't employ people. If we find that the dates are not big, and it's very easy to check on the website, so nobody can fudge that data.
So this is the Aadhaar card is very similar to our German Deutsche Ausweis, the ID card that we have.
Okay.
I just wanted the Charlie and
officially the age is 18 years. You can after 18 people can start to work, but we are very strict. We only have people after 21.
So how would you define the working conditions for workers in garment factories in general?
I would say that, compared to 10 years back, very good, but still maybe not on par with international working conditions. Okay. And, but very comfortable, very safe, and, maybe not the best in terms of comfort and everything, but most of us also work in the same condition. So, it's not that, they work in some different conditions and we work in different conditions. Most of the people work in the same condition. So I would say more than acceptable. But again, it's a double-edged sword, So there are places where, as Sachi said, there might be some exploitation and everything, but then these people don't work for reputed or good brands. They only work for the unorganized market, and it's just a matter of time because India is cracking down heavily on these kind of people. So it's just a matter of time before these kind of sweatshops shut shop.
I'm sorry, that's not true. Basically in terms of the kinds of working conditions, well, most of it I agree with what he said, but there are the big brands also do have a lot of factories because their supply chain is so big. The problem arises because they don't have a mechanism, like some of them don't have a mechanism to basically track what is going across their supply chain because it's huge. It's taking place in at least 15 to 20 different countries where their clothes are being like one part of the supply chain is in this country, it's going here, etc. So they don't, like, obviously these mechanisms are slowly building and they're coming into place, but there are certain places where people are employed under less than acceptable working conditions, and that change is slowly developing, I would definitely say that. And India is at a very good place over here where the working conditions are decent, they're acceptable working conditions, and like he said, we all work in the same conditions, so it's not that the workers stay somewhere else and the upper management or the management stays somewhere else. It's all in the same place.
Could you give examples of what challenges you face as a garment producer?
So in terms of manufacturing or in terms of quality issues or in terms of labor, what would you like to know?
You could briefly touch on any of those subjects, that's fine.
Okay, so the thing is that garment producing is a really, sometimes it looks very simple, but it's a most complex process because there are so many factors involved to the making of a garment, and it generally is very long drawn out, tedious process because most of the brands have their own style of working. They have their own SOP set. SOPs are the standard operating procedures in place, So it takes time to build up a relationship with a brand to understand their ethos. And once you understand how, what is their expectation from you, what you can bring onto the table, what you can deliver, then it becomes a smooth ride. But there are so many places. Sometimes you don't receive good fabric. Sometimes there is a problem with the lycra in the fabric, and that is only highlighted at the last stage when it comes into washing. Because when you are stitching, you will never understand if there is a problem in the lycra or something. Only when you subject it to washing or temperature or something like that, you see there is a problem. So you have a lot of quality snags that come in. Sometimes, the zippers, you get rust stains on the zippers, which get transferred onto the garment, and so making these garments basically unviable to sell. So, there are quality snags. Then also sometimes, the styles are difficult in terms of stitching. It is a challenge, to train the workers to make those new kind of styles and all of that. Plus, during festivals in India, sometimes, people see the workforce is not as disciplined as it is in the most of the European or the US countries, in the US subcontinent. Because what happens is that, these people, sometimes they go to their villages saying that we'll come back in 15 days, and they don't turn up for 1 month, 1.5 months. And when they turn up, because these people, they've been working with you since 5 years, 6 years, you know them personally. So they just cannot accept the fact that once they turn up, they feel that, you know, it is their, they have to be absorbed again into the work stream. But you know, sometimes they have been replaced by other people. But generally, you know, so these are the kind of challenges that you face. So these are basically emotional issues, you know, because and then what we generally do is we keep them back, you know, because some of them have a wedding in the family, some may, you know, some of them have genuine reasons, you know, there might have been a death in the family and there's nobody else to take care of their land and all that. So there are so many socio-economic factors which come into play. You know, you cannot just lay down rules and you know, adhere to them, because what happens is that at some point of time, you know, you have to you have an humanitarian approach. So, you know, when the HR team, sometimes they don't even, because there are rules or bylaws which have been laid down and these guys just go by the book. But so sometimes you have to over see them, and you know, you have to say, okay, you know, you have to look at the emotional aspect of things also. So these are some of the few challenges that we face. Sometimes, you know, we have so, you know, there are people who work for domestic brands, for local brands, where, you know, they extend a lot of credit to the brands and the brand don't pay on time and all of that. So, you know, in turn their salaries suffer. So these are the kind of problems that are faced generally in the industry. With our unit, what we do is we make our payments to all the workers and everyone before the 5th of the next month. So, you know, if they work for the entire January, their payment is credited into their bank accounts by the 5th of February. And what happens is that we do direct payments to their bank accounts. So, you know, they get the payments on the same day when we transfer the money to them.
Moving on, Shilpa mentioned that your factory was not a fair trade factory and there may have been some complicated processes with that. Could you elaborate on this?
I'll let Sachi answer this one.
Yeah. So in the apparel and the textile industry, at least in India, fair trade is not a very commonly known certification. There are other certifications that do exist for complying with labor laws, and obviously there are governmental laws in place. But the first problem is there is very low awareness about these certifications. So, and secondly, there is no, you need, for most of the factories, how the process for applying takes time and it takes a lot of effort basically, and they don't have that time and effort to give in, and because they don't see any very bluntly putting it out there, where they don't see any financial value out of coming out of it, they don't really go down that road. And the thing is, they might already be compliant with fair trade. It's not that they're not compliant, it's just that they don't have the certification or the label in place. So I think that's pretty much what it is.
Okay, so in my life, I feel like clothes became a throwaway product to a lot of people because of maybe the lower quality and the low prices. And do you see it the same way? And in what ways do you see the fast fashion impacting society?
Yeah. So I mean, this is this is a very broad question, but there's like I could go on and on about this, but there are, okay, so there are two aspects to this, right? One is basically why clothes are made. Clothes are made because there is a push from the consumer. Like as a consumer, and especially in our generation, even though I am from a different generation than you all, but still, throwaway culture, like you mentioned, has become very common. People are used to buying new clothes on every occasion, and especially with the rise of social media, it's considered unfashionable or unstylish if you show up in the same outfit once, which was not the case with our parents' generation. Like it was the durability of clothes lasted because people use those clothes for that long. People use the same garments for at least 5 to 6 years. Right now, the reason why garments are made only to last for a couple of months is because the same people go and buy those garments from the stores. So one aspect is of course the consumer end. Now the second aspect is the fast fashion business models, like for example Zara and H&M. They rose, like their rise to success was incredibly fast and very financially lucrative, because they employ, because the losses that you generally make while manufacturing these clothes are covered in the amount of clothes that you're making, the sheer production that you're going for. And um, of course, you can't ignore that it does provide livelihood to millions of people in these developing economies. So you can't really cut down on fast fashion. Like, you one day the brand just can't be like, you know what, we're going to stop producing from 5 seasons to 2 seasons, we're going to go from that. You can't, it has to be a gradual change, because while you're keeping in mind the environmental effects of it, which are really disastrous, you also need to keep in mind that you can't just put 1 million people out of jobs. You need to create jobs. So I would say the solution to it is basically creating I don't know if you guys are aware of the concepts of a circular economy or a recycling economy. So these are basically new concepts and solutions that are coming, where the garment that you dispose is basically brought into the supply chain again. It's made in such a way that it can be brought into the supply chain again, and you don't put a lot of pressure on virgin materials or new materials. So you're reusing the same materials. That way you ensure that people's livelihoods, people's jobs are not taken, and at the same time you're trying to mitigate the environmental effects of fast fashion. So that's one thing. And the second thing is that in terms of its impact on society, especially Gen Z is slowly is becoming far more aware than previous generations in terms of the environmental and the social impacts, especially in developed economies like Europe and the US. Like studies show that consumers want to know how their clothes are made, where their clothes are made. That's exactly why the four of you got into this project, because you wanted to know the conditions, you wanted to understand more about it. And there are technologies that are coming into place which can help consumers show. Like, for example, there is a solution that lets you scan a QR code on your garment, and it will basically show you everything that the garment has gone through. So there are various technologies that are coming in place to make the supply chain more sustainable and just basically an overall better place to work in. And of course, those changes are also like, one is from the consumer end, the other is also governments are cracking down on it like a lot, especially in Europe. As I'm sure you must be aware, the Dutch government, the German government, they have very, very strict laws in terms of what comes into their country, very simply put. So, and because the consumption, like for example, the clothes might be made in India, but they're being exported. They're being exported to the US and Europe. So they have to comply with the standards that are set there. So the push from the brands is immense, and that's when the changes in the manufacturing landscape will take place, because manufacturers by themselves cannot make these changes because they don't have the money to do it. They need support from the brands, and that's how it works. So it's basically a circle, I would say, where it's not just one stakeholder, but everybody needs to push.
Okay, thank you very much. And since you already mentioned the impact of the environment, I think, Yasmin, you could go on to your question.
All right. So what impact has fast fashion had on the whole garment industry and on a garment producer?
So the biggest impact that I can think of, what fast fashion has done, is that it has produced a pile of unsold inventory. Okay, there is so much of huge unsold inventories lying around everywhere in the world, because it's just a simple fact that it's no more acceptable to buy this thing, this has just gone out of vogue, this has just gone out of fashion. So you have so much of energy that has been consumed, so much of this things which are occupying so many spaces and everywhere. And I also read, because this fast fashion, basically fast fashion is, what I would relate to is also cheap fashion. Okay, cheap in terms of pricing. Okay, so what happens is, because the whole idea behind fast fashion is that people want you to use those stuff for 3-4 months, 5 months, and then get on to another concept or another kind of they want people to shop more and more, and so to push up their sales, because So what I believe is that what it has created is that there is huge pile of unsold inventory lying across all over the world. And I really don't know how they're going to dispose of all of this, means so that's a big question. That is one thing. Secondly, I think what it is doing, it is destroying, when we are talking about sustainability and everything, it is destroying, you're just making things, like, so when I was a kid, you know, what we basically, we had a Diwali festival, and what we used to do is we used to get 2 or 3 pairs of clothes, which were, and at that time there were no ready-made clothes or something, so we used to get them stitched, and this was it, means, or maybe if there is a wedding in the family, we would have 1 pair of clothes. So there is a lot of value attached to a lot of things. It's just so difficult for most of us at the age which I am to just go and indulge in frivolous shopping, I would say that. But what it has encouraged a generation is to just go out there, go to a mall, go buy clothes, and use it for 2-3 months and then throw them away. So I think that they're also impacting the spending habits of people, and in a negative way, not in a good way. So these are some things that I will have to be taken into account. There are now certain brands. I'm not sure. I'm not able to recollect that brand. I think it is a brand. I think you guys can Google. I think it is Blue of a Kind, if I'm not mistaken, which has taken the onus of, if you have a jeans which you've been wearing for 2 years, couple of years, you can go to them, you can tell them that I'm tired of this look, and they will wash it, or they'll do something to it, and will give you an entire new twist to that garment. But that same original garment, which I believe is a great idea, because you are not wasting resources. And if that happens, then these kind of things, if they start getting implemented, then I think it will be good.
Um, I would like to ask Sapan, could you please explain the word inventory?
So there are brands who produce so much of material depending on the demand that they anticipate. And I will not name the brands, but most of all the brands. There are 3 or 4 big retailers out there, and what they do is that every 2-3 months they have a fresh collection coming in. So the people who follow those brands, they immediately know that these brands are now normal. This style or sorts are no longer in vogue. So these garments are sold at a sale, maybe 30%, 40%. It even goes up to 60%. But after all of this also, there is a lot of goods which lie unsold. Okay, because these guys have moved on to the next level, and people want to change with the times. And so what happens is that, what happens to all this unsold inventory? This is my question. This is something which even I would be keen to know what happens to all this unsold inventory.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so that just brings me back to what I mentioned in the previous question, the recycling as a circular economy. There are multiple solutions. The thing is that to kind of effectively stop fast fashion, there's not just one solution. You need to employ multiple solutions depending on the place, the supply chain, etc. So one is obviously thrifting, which has seen like a major uprise in the last 2 years, especially in the pandemic. Are all of you aware of what thrifting is? Yeah. Okay, I'll just explain. Thrifting is basically reusing somebody's clothing. So let's assume I don't like this anymore. I can just give it away to a thrift shop, and somebody can just come in there and they can buy it if they like it. So that's basically what thrifting is: reusing clothes and swapping and borrowing, etc. There are some huge platforms that have come up, especially in the US. There is a platform called ThreadUp. in the US, which is one of the it's the biggest thrifting platform in the world. And yeah, so basically there are solutions like these that are coming back. Then, like my dad mentioned, there's the take back system, which brands have started. Even if you see, actually some of the fast fashion brands, they've also started doing this. H&M has this policy where you can come and give away your old and your garments that you want to discard, basically, and you'll get like a 10% or a 15% off. Now the problem is, what happens with all of this waste that is collected that ends up ultimately going to the landfill is it's directed to third world countries. And when there are multiple news articles that talk about it, where they basically, first of all, burn those clothes, which is obviously horrible on the environment. Or secondly, you might have seen schemes where it's like, yeah, donate your clothes, they'll go to poor or needy children in Africa, all of that, right? The thing is, they have their clothes, they don't need those clothes anymore. It's basically a scam that's used to make you feel good about buying your clothes again and buying their clothes again and again, and for them to just find an easy disposal or dump of for their clothes, because the laws aren't as stringent over there. And there are reports and studies that are increasingly coming. There was a study there was a very, very new operation that was basically carried out on Nike. Nike claimed that they sent their unused shoes or unsold shoes back to a recycling factory in either Belgium or Germany. I'm not sure. And what some journalists did is they tracked it using a chip. They basically put a chip in the shoe and they tracked whether it was actually going to the factory, and it didn't end up in the factory. It ended up in a landfill. So that's the thing. These brands also make a lot of claims which they don't live up to. And because it's so difficult to understand or track whether they're actually living up to those claims, it's very easy of them to dispose of things. So the solutions are slowly coming into place, where there are also technologies that can take back your clothes and recycle them into new fabric, etc. But these are very fresh technologies. They're still developing. They would at least take another 5 or 6 years to reach a scale where it can be implemented at a mass scale or a commercial scale.
Before we go any further, I would just like to remind all of you, it's been almost an hour and the time has just flown, and it has been really, really interesting. And I would like to ask all of you concerned if we could continue again. We'll set up another appointment, because this, I'm sure, was or has been an interesting experience to all of you. And we still have some questions, right, Ria?
Just a couple more, yes.
So do you mind if we could continue this the next time, Sachi and Sapan?
Yeah, for me it works, because I have to be on another call in the next 5 minutes. So it works for me anytime next week after Wednesday.
What about you, Sachi?
Maybe we do this the same time next week, or maybe a couple of hours earlier, next Saturday. Is that? Oh, actually, wait, it's a little too soon for the
For the Americans,
I'm so sorry.
So we can, Sachi, what we can do is, we can do this maybe at the same time, or maybe even 2 hours later, because some of the people have really gotten up early, to do this. For us, we can do it at
maybe
and
9
it would be better if you could do it on the weekend, because on weekdays they have their school and their extra classes. So if you could do it
next Saturday, 9 p.m. IST, Indian time. I think that, what time is
Okay.
it for all of you?
I will check with them and I will let you know. Okay?
Okay.
Good. A big thank you to all of you, including the pupils, but a special thanks to Sapan and Sachi for just taking the time. And now I think we have more questions that have arisen, but I think I'm sure we are talking to the right partners to get information and knowledge about this
No, and one more thing that I would like to tell you guys is also that at any point of time, if anyone wants you of you to visit India to see the conditions, to go to people, meet people, we will be more than happy to facilitate that. You can come over, you can meet workers, you can go visit factories, go around for you to have a first-hand knowledge of what all is happening. Okay.
Oh, that's very, very, very kind of you. So I think I'll be the first one to take your invitation, take up on your invitation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, guys, great to meet you all. Great bunch of people. And if you have any more questions, everything, we can do it next week. And I hope that this whole conversation was, had some insights for you, and we were able to help you to get the right kind of outlook, So, and if you have any other further questions, we can do it next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a
Bye.
lot. Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you guys. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So, Peter, wo bist du? Bist du da?
Ja, ich bin da.
Okay.
Okay, wartet
Can
mal
you
kurz.
stop the recording, please?
I just wanted to, because we are now there, I wanted to make, I already made this, the recording only of the speaker. What I want to do, because that I record the 4 pupils in a group, because sometimes when one person was speaking, it was splitting to another person. So I could record now you 4 as you listening, so we could put it in the scenes where the video goes to another person. You understand? I just try to give me a so I'm still so it would be, I don't know if you want that Shilpa could be seen too. So you are doing like as you are watching now the video, so we could put this in the recording. You understand? And I will do it now with you all, and then I will do it with every one of you. So we could put it in the scenes. You maybe saw that too, that it was going from one person to another person. You understand? Perfect. So best try to look in the video so that I'm sorry it takes some time, but so what about you? How did you find this talk? No, you can. I think.
Would you like to turn off the recording?
Yeah, I would record off now. Stop the recording. Just.